Hi. So now we have Steve Hoffman on the phone, and he is the CEO and of Founderspace, and also the author of Make Elephants Fly. Steve, are you there?
I am here. Great to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Sure.
So, Steve, you just wrote a book. It's called Make Elephants Fly. And you also run Founderspace, which I have heard about and attended a few of your events. But I don't know much about you. So tell me, what is your story?
Okay. I have a long, twisted story. I've done a lot of different things. I've taken a lot of different paths in life. So I've done everything from make movies, work as a television executive, produced games, created animations. I'm an author, and I founded 3 venture-funded startups. And then I launched Founderspace. And Founderspace is an incubator and accelerator that is global. So we work with over 50 partners in 22 countries, and I spend 70% of my time traveling now, meeting entrepreneurs all over the world and helping them with their business. So helping them get funded, helping them launch their products, helping them innovate. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun, and it's an amazing experience. I've learned so much because all around the world, people are innovating, but they're doing it in very different ways.
So I was just thinking about how I'm jealous of your life, and then all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I'm not, because I lead a very different life from yours, and which makes both of us really, really unique, right?
Yeah.
And so, tell us about your new book, Make Elephants Fly.
So I wrote Make Elephants Fly because I've spent the past 6 years working hands-on with startups. And then I have a lot of my own personal experience actually having struggled as a startup founder. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. So I've done it 3 different times, and I know just how hard it is. And I had failures along the way. I also had successes, but I know what it's like when you're really down. And when you're really down, it feels, getting your startup off the ground feels like trying to make an elephant fly. It just feels like you're lifting this huge weight. And I think startup founders know what I mean. And you just can't imagine getting this thing off the ground. But if you keep trying, a lot of the times it will happen. So in the book, what I did was I took a lot of my experience and a lot of the experience of startup founders I work with, and I drew from them all the different lessons they learned and a lot of different case studies of how they struggled and what they did to become successful, and also those startups that failed, why they failed, explaining what they did wrong that they wouldn't, if they had to do it all over again, they would do differently. And that's kind of the core of Make Elephants Fly.
So for the audience out there, if you have a question for Steve, you can tweet it to KZSU or KZSU DJ or at laptop_radio. The topic today is called, writing Make Elephants Fly, which is Steve's new book. And what inspires you to write the book?
I had so many different experiences that I had lived through myself, as well as, when you're helping a startup, when you're invested in them, either with money or with your time and effort and mentoring them and really helping guide them, and you see what they come up against. I had so many of these experiences that I thought were really valuable, especially for other young startup founders that have, maybe done it and failed, or they're trying for the first time and they want to get out there and really do it. I wanted to share those experiences and help guide them. So at the bare minimum, They can not make the mistakes that I've made personally or the mistakes that I've seen many, many startup founders make. They can go off and make new mistakes when they do their company.
Remember to make new mistakes.
Yeah. No point in making the same mistakes that everybody else makes.
Okay. So let's just really go to the basics. What is the definition or your definition of innovation?
Innovation is interesting because people get innovation confused with invention. Now, you can be an inventor, but not an innovator, and you can be an innovator and not an inventor. And here's my definition at the core. So, invention, when you invent a new technology, bring something new, like a core technology, into the world, that usually takes years, and it takes lots of money. And most startup founders, what they don't have is a lot of money. They can't spend millions and millions of dollars, and they don't have years of time. Usually, their timeline is pretty short. They have to get their product out in under a year. So most startup founders are innovators. And what innovators do is they take an existing core technology, whether it's AI or nanotechnology or CRISPR DNA editing or blockchain or whatever it is, and they don't necessarily invent it, but they add on to it, they change it, they morph it, and they adapt it to solve problems in different industries. So every time a new technology is born, whether it's the internet or anything else that you can imagine, the PC, all of a sudden it opens up all these new doors for entrepreneurs to go through with that technology, and by using that technology, gain a huge competitive advantage over the incumbent players, the big players already in the space, and launch products that are either much better than any of the competitors out there so that they can grow really fast, or very different. They actually offer different value to the customer. And that is the role of an innovator. An innovator sees the opportunity, takes all the pieces they can, and then rushes through the door before anybody else and builds a new business.
What is the innovation loop, and how does that work?
The innovation loop. So the innovation loop is the core of innovating. It's the process every entrepreneur and everybody, whether you're at a big company or a medium-sized company, goes through when they want to innovate. The innovation loop is where you come up with an idea. You're like, this would be really, really interesting if I did this. But you don't know. And so what you do is you break down that idea into a bunch of small ideas, and you want to test each one. So you take each of the little ideas, and you devise an experiment where you can go out as quickly as possible and get feedback, get data on whether your idea is actually workable or whether it's wrong. Your hypothesis is wrong. You go out there, you test the idea, you get data and feedback, and then you modify your assumption. You change and you test the next most important idea. Now, the startups that move through this loop over and over and over, it's an iterative process of coming up with ideas, testing them, getting data, modifying the ideas, testing them over and over and over. The ones who move through it the fastest have the least chance of failure and the highest chance of success. Because each time you go through the innovation loop, you're learning. You're coming closer and closer to figuring out something that other people don't know. And the key of startup founders is to move through the loop really fast. You don't care if it succeeds or fails. That's your job, is not to make it succeed. Your job is just to learn. And that's what I think a lot of startup founders fail. They put on blinders. They're like, I have to make this work. I have to prove it works. That's not your job. Your job isn't to prove it works. Your job is to learn as much as you can and figure out things that other people haven't figured out yet so that you can go and exploit a new opportunity.
So I'm going to add something there, and maybe you can elaborate on that. And when I think about the innovation loop, I also think about, a lot of founders sit on their desk in front of the computer all the time, and they don't go out there to the field and talk to people. How important is that? How important is to really go there and play and ask questions and talk to different people in different industries and getting their feedback and balancing that with, coding and analyzing?
That is really, really important. You hit the nail on the head. No, because too many startup founders, another mistake they make is they simply sit in their own little bubble. And they're working away and they're building stuff, and it's really fun. Everybody loves to build stuff, but they don't go out there and get enough feedback from the outside, enough input from the outside to really test if they're on the right track. And they can waste years. I've seen them come to me and they say, I've worked 3 years on this. I've put so much into it. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't shown me that anybody really needs it. Nobody really needs it. And so what I tell startup founders to do is, before you dive into coding, before you dive into building whatever you're building, first thing you need to do is build as little as possible and take it out. Get out of your co-working space or out of your apartment or wherever you're working, your lab, and go and engage with the customer. And engage in a meaningful way where they can get a clear idea of what you're about to bring to market and give you that early feedback so that you can course correct. Because of all the great startups we see out there, most of them were on a totally different track when they started. The way they found success was, if they had stayed on their original track, they would never be the company they are today. I can just give you a couple examples. Like Google. We all know Google, right? Seemed like a slam dunk. But at the beginning, they weren't even building a search engine. They were building an algorithm to index academic research papers. And they thought their company would be a nonprofit. And they were right. If they had stuck with just indexing academic research papers, they would have been a nonprofit. It was only later that they stumbled upon search engines are big and our algorithm is better than anybody else's. We'll move into this. YouTube, another one, they were doing a video dating site. And we all know how popular video dating is. It's not very popular. Well, they found that out pretty quickly. And if they hadn't pivoted into enabling people to share links on the internet and share their videos, they would never be YouTube today. So the process of actually getting out there, and you don't have to physically get out there. Let's face it, some businesses, especially enterprise businesses and B2B businesses, you can go talk to your customer. There are real people out there you can go talk to and say, hey, do you want this? And you've got to get out and you've got to hustle and you've got to meet them and you've got to show them and get their feedback. But some businesses, which are online businesses, the way you get out there is to launch a very early prototype of your product or simulate what your product will be like and get feedback online. So getting out there can be physically going outside, or it can be getting something out there where users can engage and you can start to get feedback from them.
So Steve, why is it important to be first to market with an innovation?
Yes.
Yeah.
So first doesn't always win, but first gives you a huge advantage. And I will tell you why. Because if you are first out there with the right solution, that's the key. It has to be the right solution. If you're first out there and you have the wrong solution, it doesn't matter. You're still going to fail, even though you're first. But we saw this with Google, to go back to Google. They were not the first search engine. There were 19 search engines already very, online and doing quite well. But Google came in with the first one to actually give you search results that were meaningful, that were good. All the other search engines were pretty crappy. And that's why they were the first one with the right solution. So once you figure it out, getting into the market first with the right solution basically allows you to start growing exponentially. Because first of all, there are no other, when you have the right solution and nobody else does, you have the playing field to yourself. It's blue oceans, as they say. And you can basically just start acquiring customers, building your brand, and reinvesting, actually getting capital, getting a lot of capital, because the first to market, if they're successful, usually gets a lot of capital, and putting all of that back into the business, creating an engine. This engine that just grows and grows and grows. And once you start growing exponentially. And that means it's very, very hard for any of your competitors to catch up. And the first one with the right solution usually dominates the market. They actually, once they get out ahead, because of economies of scale, because of the network effect and other things, and building a brand, they can push everybody else aside. And if they don't stumble, kind of screw up, they can own the market. So we see this, like YouTube dominates video. It's hard for anybody to compete with them. The next players there are other players in video, but YouTube is worth exponentially more than all the other players. They are exponentially more, right, than Vimeo and all the other guys. In search, Google is worth exponentially more than the other competitors. So they are worth way more than Bing or what are the other search engines, DuckDuckGo or whatever they are. They're tiny compared to Google. And this happens over and over. Amazon is worth exponentially more than the other e-commerce players. So over and over, the one who gains that momentum and starts enters the market first has a huge competitive advantage.
I'm thinking about balancing that. So some startups are in stealth mode because they don't really want the public to know them. So how do you balance between being in stealth and being known and being public? And what is and also fundraising, right? So what is the best way to assess when do you want to be first in a market? When do you want it to come out? When do you want to start fundraising?
So a lot of startups are worried that they will be copied, and rightly so. When your idea comes out there, people can copy you, and we know there are copycats all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. Everywhere. But there's a great danger to keeping the idea hidden, because what it does is it leaves that open to somebody else to take the mantle and say, I was first. And, if a trend is happening, if something is about to happen, and usually startups don't go out there and create markets. The markets are already there. What a startup does is they identify a market and they bring a product into it that people have already been waiting for, even though they don't know it. But when they see it, they're like, oh my God, I needed this. Wow, this is amazing. Like Facebook or whatever it is. I've been waiting for this to come along. It's so cool. So, if they don't enter that market, they're giving every day they don't enter that market. They're giving other people a chance to do that and build their brand ahead of them and become kind of perceived as the market leader. And once you're perceived as the market leader, the press just piles on, right? They keep talking about you over and over and over, and that generates this flywheel that accelerates your growth. There's another factor here too I want to go into. So it's very difficult for startups to get into a market. And when you have a new idea that you're trying to keep secret, what you are automatically doing is you're not getting the feedback and information from your users or customers. Now, imagine this. I want to give you an example. Imagine if the founder, Palmer Luckey, the founder of Oculus, kept his idea secret. Imagine if he had kept his idea secret. I guarantee you, Oculus would have never sold to Facebook for billions of dollars, because there were lots of other people in the space doing similar things to what he was doing at the same time. And a lot of those people actually had more advanced technology than Palmer Luckey had. In fact, Palmer Luckey had no technology. He was using open source from USC and other places to build his first VR units. He hadn't invented any of that technology, but the technology was available. It was being experimented with at universities around the world. What Palmer Luckey did was actually simply take that technology, envision it for the world, show the world the potential of VR, put it up on Kickstarter with a really cool video, and that thing just took off because people were like, oh my God, wouldn't VR be cool? And people started to give him money on Kickstarter. The press caught on. They started to write about it. Then venture capital came in, but it wasn't until 4 years later, after they got acquired by Facebook, that they actually launched their product. Now, I guarantee you, if he had kept that idea secret for 4 years and was building it, somebody else would have come along and they would have been the Oculus that we all talk about as kind of kicking off the VR craze. Now, that's the danger of not going out there. That's the danger of keeping your idea secret. You're not getting the information to actually go through the innovation loop fast, to iterate really fast and learn, and you're not getting the attention in grabbing, basically positioning yourself as market leader.
So what is the opposite of that, though? What if someone, likes your idea and they have a better team and, or funding and takes your idea and run off with it? What could you do? I mean, what is that risk?
Well, usually if you're focused and you have a great team, you're able to execute, and you go out with your idea, you will, and you go out first, you have a big advantage. Other people can copy you, but they're starting from ground zero. They literally have to stop whatever they're doing, and most people are doing something else, and organize and start to focus to catch up on you. Now, it does happen if your team, like you said, if your team isn't good at executing, the other team is better, they're able to raise more money, get more capital, they can pass you up. And we've seen this happen. Look at Lyft and Uber. Lyft had the business model Uber's using now before Uber.
Yeah, I've actually heard of Lyft first before Uber.
Right. So Lyft was around with that business model before Uber of letting anybody drive the cars. And Uber copied them, and Uber passed them up. That can happen. Lyft isn't out of the game yet because Uber is kind of, they screwed up in a big way. So I always take Lyft now. But honestly, that's a risk you just have to take. It's a risk you have to take. If you don't, there are risks. Doing a startup is risky business. It's like you're going to have risks. And the risk of keeping it quiet and not engaging, not going out there with your product versus the risk of going out there, I would say the risk of not going out there is higher from everything I have seen. It's actually significantly higher.
Yeah. I'm now wanted to talk about, because, whether you want to take that risk is, dependent on the people and the team. So what type of people make the best innovators? So who are these people who are willing to take this risk? Who wanted to really go out there and talk to different people, tell people about the idea, and innovate.
Okay. So this is a really good point. Yeah. If you don't have a good team, don't go out there. Build your team first.
Stay home.
Because you're going to get creamed. You're going to get killed anyway, right? Somebody's going to copy your idea and they're going to do it better, faster, raise more money. They're going to kill you. But if you have a great team, then it's worth taking the risk. That's a really good point that you made. In terms of a team, a lot of people drop the ball here. They spend too much time on their idea and at the beginning and not enough time on team building. And I can't tell you how much I stress at an early stage. Don't worry about your idea. Your idea is probably wrong. If it's right, it's probably just generally right, and you have a lot to learn, and you'll change it many, many times, and it will evolve before it's an actual product that really resonates with the people who are going to be your buyers, your customers. So focus almost all your energy at the very beginning on building the best possible team you can imagine. And the sign of a great... Yeah, go ahead. Interrupt me.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to interrupt you. And this is a really important interruption. Okay, what are some elements of an innovative team?
Okay, elements of an innovative team. So elements of an innovative team are where you have people... you have to have an environment where everybody feels comfortable expressing themselves. If you have a dominant person who kind of puts down everybody and says, no, you do this, you do that, no, don't do that, I'm in control, it's very hard for your team to innovate. Because especially the thing that makes or breaks an innovative team is the team leader. And in a startup, that's usually the CEO. So the team leader has to create an environment where people aren't afraid to step forward and challenge what other people are thinking. Because innovation in an innovation team is all about saying, no. What about this idea? Oh, I think this and I think that. And we don't have to agree. In fact, because we don't agree, that gives us something that we need to go out and test. This might not be true. Let's figure out which of us is right. Let's not argue with our opinions, but let's actually devise an experiment where we can figure out who's right. So great innovation teams are where you have people with different expertise who so one person may be a star coder. Another person may be really good at market analysis. Another person may be awesome at sales. They're just the born salesperson. There may be another person who's a great designer. And all these people coming together with diverse backgrounds, somebody may be from India, somebody may be from Silicon Valley, somebody may be from the Middle East or Africa or Europe, and they're all getting together with their different ideas, their different ways of looking at the world, and they are joining together, and then they are building something. And they are challenging each other every step of the way to think more deeply and look at the world from a perspective that other people haven't seen yet. So it's going on a journey.
So Steve, when you're going on this journey, not just the skill set, but also the personality or soft skill, so I'm just thinking about lifting an elephant net right now, making it fly. One person could be very negative and say, oh my God, that can't be done. Another person who's more optimistic was like, oh, I'm going to code it this way so it could be done. And then another person might be, oh, why don't we lift the airs first or something, right? So, I thought the belief system, could be more as important as a skill set. I mean, or someone could be more humble, someone could be more arrogant, and just really balancing that, right?
You're absolutely right. Now, there's certain traits that are conducive to innovation, and there are other ones that are actually detrimental to innovation. So if you have innovators in general tend to be overly optimistic. They tend to believe you can do stuff that nobody else has done before. And if they are really negative people, they tend not to innovate. They're always finding an excuse why they can't do it. You could make a million excuses for why Elon Musk couldn't go out and launch the first electric car company. There's a million reasons why he should fail. And there are a million and one reasons why, SpaceX was supposed to fail, and all these great things. But innovators are naturally overly optimistic. So if you have somebody who's on the opposite end of the spectrum, who's overly pessimistic, they probably shouldn't be on your team, honestly. And I like diversity. So what you need is there's a difference between pessimism and being analytical. So, and questioning. It's good to question, right? It's good to say, what about this? Why is this? Let's really go deep and analyze. You say this is true, but let's try to figure out why. That skill set is really good. So there can be big picture optimists who don't go into the details, and they're like, yeah, let's do this. And they're, spinning a web of dreams. And then there can be, and then there can be on the team somebody who's very analytical and go, yeah, that's fine. But have you thought about this? And how can we test that? And what is the data actually showing us? That's a good combination. Having somebody who's pessimistic or somebody who's very ego-driven or wants to put other people down, wants to dominate, that's also a negative characteristic you don't want on an innovation team. That actually hampers innovation. So you like people who enjoy the process of cooperating, who enjoy working with other people, who actually, love the challenge and love being challenged by their coworkers. Those are the best people for innovation teams.
So, Steve, everything that I touch turned into gold, and I'm better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay, seriously. Okay, what are some elements? Okay, so we talk about some elements of innovative team. So what are the biggest factors in a startup success?
So there's so many factors that a successful startup needs. But I'll give you a few of the core ones. One of the core things is that when you go out to market, you need a product does one of two things. And if it doesn't do either of these two things, you're never going to be a huge business, right? You're never going to be the next Google or whatever, Amazon. You might be a small or medium-sized business. The first thing is your product either needs to be exponentially, not incrementally, but exponentially better than the existing competition. Because if you're not exponentially better, why would anybody switch to you? Nobody likes to change, right? People don't like to change. There's a high cost to change. So most people will stick with what they're using. They know how to use it unless you offer real value that they can't get there. The other way to win, and the only other way I've been able to identify, is if your product is fundamentally different than the competition. Meaning it can use the same technology, it can kind of be similar on the surface, it can even target the same customers, but it offers those customers a different value, a value they're not getting from the current product, so that they would use your product in addition to what they're already using to solve a problem for them or provide entertainment value or some other value that they aren't getting. Those are the two ways. So I tell startups, if your product doesn't do one of these two things, if you can't tell me how it does either one of these two things, then you're not going to succeed. You need to think more. You need to experiment more. You need to find out, what you can do that accomplishes one of these two goals.
Awesome. What qualities do you look for in an entrepreneur when you're talking to them? Like what's the link between the person and accomplishment of those two goals?
Qualities. So in an entrepreneur, there's no one type of entrepreneur. I mean, everybody, as we were talking about, has different skill sets. Some people are more analytical. Some people are dreamers. Some people are great designers. Some people are like super mathematical wizards, But I can tell you, if the most important person on any team in a startup is the CEO. The CEO is going to set the framework. They're going to set the culture. They're going to bring everybody together. They're going to have to make the hard decisions of who's on the team and who's off the team. Somebody has to do that. So what I look for in a CEO, when I look for the CEO, is I'll look at a lot of things. I'll look at, like, what was their work history? Where have they worked before? Did they work for Facebook or Google? That's a plus. But that doesn't mean they're going to be a great entrepreneur, because there are a lot of people at Facebook, Google, and other companies, Amazon, who, just aren't great entrepreneurs. They're good within a big company. I will look at their educational background. Did they go to Stanford or Harvard or, MIT or some other great school? That's a plus, but not everybody who goes to a great school is a great entrepreneur. You forgot to mention Berkeley, by the way. Berkeley, of course, Berkeley. Berkeley's awesome. I can't mention every school in the world, but Cal is great. I'm a UC guy. So the bottom line is the school is great, but it doesn't, you might just be really good at taking exams. You could have graduated with a 4.0, but it doesn't mean you're cut out to be a great entrepreneur. So when I look at them, I look at a couple things. And the first thing I look at is, like, who did they bring on their team? Because, like I was saying at the beginning, it's the team will make or break you. The idea doesn't matter, because if it's a bad idea, the team will figure it out and do something else. And if it's a great idea, the team will be able to execute. So I look at who's on the team. And if that person, that CEO, was able to attract other amazing people, like just amazing people that could be out there working at six-figure jobs, could be, living the easy life, but they chose to work for this startup for no money, based on a dream, a shared dream that the CEO has, then I know the CEO has accomplished the first major milestone that a startup needs to be successful. They've built a great team. They've attracted great talent, because it's great talent that ends up making it happen. And so that is the first thing I look for. Then I'll go deeper into the characteristics of, like, the team members. Like, are they the type who give up easily, right? In the sense that you've got to have, like, tenacity, because doing a startup is hard. You've got to, like, have tenacity, but you can't just be stubborn. You also have to be flexible and open to new ideas. So are you tenacious? but are you also able to, do you have blinders on, or are you able to accept new data and change when that data tells you that the direction you're headed is wrong? And this combination, and then the last thing I look for as a core quality is, are there people on the team who are super curious? Are they the type of people who just love learning? They love figuring things out. In their spare time, they're building stuff, they're hacking, they're experimenting, they're trying all these different things. Everything they look at, they want to go deep on. Because only by going super deep, farther than everybody else, you really get to the point where you actually discover something interesting that nobody else has figured out. If you look at these qualities together, wow, that's a killer team, right? That's the type of team, they're going to figure it out, right? If they have all those qualities, if they're, great team builders, super curious, really smart, capable people, they will eventually figure something out that's worth something.
So when we're talking about, good qualities and just as a whole, as a CEO as a whole, sometimes we want to challenge ourselves. What are some beliefs that we should challenge ourselves on? What should we work on? If we don't have, particular characteristics already, or we have a particular beliefs that might limit us in growing, right?
Yeah, all of us have our weaknesses. I know all mine, and they're too numerous to list. But we all have things that we aren't good at. We all have things that we could improve at, and that nobody's a super person, except maybe Elon Musk. No, I'm joking. His personal relationships don't seem to be the strongest. His personal relationship skills. But all of us have areas, and the most important thing is to be honest with yourself and recognize those, first of all. To say, hey, I'm not that good in this area. How would I deal with that? Do I have time to actually train myself in this, to better myself? Or can I bring on somebody to the team who's really good at this? For example, the CEO may not be really good at dealing with employees. Right? They're too busy. They don't have the soft touch. Well, can I bring on an HR manager or another co-founder who's really good at kind of building community and getting employees to come out of their shell and bond together? So if you're not the person to do that, but you have other skills that you are excellent at, you should focus on the things you're really excellent at. Because when you focus on something you're great at, the input is amplified exponentially. It's like a loudspeaker, right? If you're really great at it, you can put in a little energy and get a huge result. But if you're really bad at it, you're going to put in a lot of energy and get a small result because you're just not good at it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't improve yourself. It's just meaning, like, right now, when you're doing a startup, know what you're really good at and fill the gaps with other people who are really good at what you're not. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, in the course of your life, you should always be looking to improve. So if there are areas that you're dissatisfied with, or that you see you have recurring problems, I'm a huge believer in self-education. I honestly believe today universities, they will give you kind of a good foundation, but the day you graduate university is the day you should start learning.
Yeah.
Universities. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I still have Audibles before Amazon purchased it, and I usually read a lot of books per week. So
I'm a huge audiobook fan. I am an audiobook fanatic. So I do at least one audiobook a week, at least. Every time I'm in the car, every time I'm exercising, I'm listening to an audiobook. I'm always trying to educate myself. And I think books are, like, amazing. They're just one way to educate yourself, but they are amazing because a book is the perfect distillation of you. Basically, you can tap the smartest people that ever lived throughout history and get all their ideas in a very concise and well thought out format. It's like you're entering their brain, but not in just a conversational, random way. You're entering their brain in a very structured way and getting all their best ideas in the best way they could articulate it. So, yeah, books are amazing. I'm constantly reading books on science and history and art and design and, business, everything.
Yeah, so
and fiction. Yeah.
I happened to click on you on Facebook, and I saw that you're reading The Wild Ship Chase, and I'm just like, I was obsessed. So I'm reading IQ 84 and Kafka on the Shore.
I have to read that.
Yeah, and I love Dance Dance Dance. So I've been pretty obsessed with him. Yeah, and I'm wanting to go to Japan one day and visit all the places that the book mentioned. I actually have that list somewhere. So
they have tours.
Yes.
They have tours.
Yes.
Where you could take the author tour through Japan. Yeah, he is brilliant. He's a brilliant author. So I've read, I don't know, probably a dozen of his books now, but not all of them. He has so many.
Yep. So let's talk about Make Elephants Fly. So why should we read your book, and how is it different from the other books?
Well, one, it's written it's explained the way I talk, right? So if you if you like the way I talk or the way I think, you may know some of the stuff. I'm not saying every idea in there is original. But it's explained in the way that I communicate. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a fun, fast, energetic read, and hopefully you will discover some new ideas, or at least it will make you think about things in your own business and your life in a new way. That was my goal.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to download your book.
Thank you.
And I'm like a book nerd, so it was like
me too. I'm a total book nerd.
Yeah, it's my shoes and my books.
Yeah, let me tell you, I'm so obsessed with audiobooks now that I got a waterproof speaker, and I even listen in the shower. Is that crazy?
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I actually separate I have 2 or 3 different Kindles, and each one has different purposes. So the Fire is for Audible, and then I have the regular Kindle for literature book. Because business books I don't want to read, right? So I would go through Audible. But for like literature, I like to read because I like the sounds of words. I like the stories. I like to be immersed. I like the English, right? So I have like a whole different system for every single type of books. It's kind of crazy.
That is great. That is great. Yeah, because when you read text on a page, you visualize it differently than when you hear it. Mm-hmm. Because you can stop and pause. Whereas if you're, in Audible, it forces you to go at a certain pace. And do you do this? I go at double speed now on Audible for business books and information books.
Yeah, so I went to CES, and on the way back, we were listening to podcasts at like 1.5 speed or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I go at 2x. I'm a 2x man now.
I gotta try.
It took a while to work. I graduated slowly. I kept upping it until I got to 2x. Now, honestly, it feels normal now. Like it feels like, wow, they're talking so slow when you go back to 1x.
Yeah, and then now I'm adding YouTube now, so it's like Audible's YouTube Audible, right? And then it's just amazing. It's amazing.
It is. There's so much information. That's the beauty of the age we live in right now. There's so much information at your fingertips that you can be constantly self-educating and expanding your mind with actually very little work. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah, I also make stuff that I learned from YouTube. Like, Yeah, so I'm like, I have like gallium in my office because I was making gallium YouTube spinners with my nephew.
You are my type of person.
I know. I saw your Facebook page and I was just like, oh my God, like, what is going on there?
Making gallium, wow. No, most people don't do that.
Yeah, but it's kind of fun. I just like to experiment with different things I learned. So I know it's almost 4. So last question is, what is one advice that you have for the community?
Oh, the community.
Yep.
So get together. The best and most stimulating thing is, besides reading and doing other stuff, is getting together with people you really respect, really smart people who you can have deep conversations with, not just shallow kind of mixer conversations that a lot of us have, or passing by conversations, but really deep and meaningful conversations. Because I find, at least with myself, that a lot of times when I'm in a conversation, it's a different type of learning, than you do when you're reading a book or even doing an experiment or doing something else. But especially if you can get into what other people are into. So if you find somebody who's totally fanatic about kites, and you seldom fly a kite or you haven't flown one since you were a kid, it's like if you can go really deep with that person and understand what magic they're seeing there, it can like open up a whole new world to you. And so that's the thing that communities are great for.
Okay, and then I guess I know someone is waiting for us, but we have a question from the community. So just really quickly,
yes.
Are patents important, or does a great demo supersede?
So this is something I tell all startups. Don't be too obsessed with patents at the beginning. At the very beginning, you don't even know usually if what you're working on is the right thing. So don't waste a lot of time and a lot of money patenting it. You can file the patents later. If you have to, if you're super concerned, you can file a provisional patent, which just costs like $100 and can buy you a year. But don't spend too much time. Get the demo out there, engage the customer.
Okay, awesome. I think it was 250 or whatever, approximately 250. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. It was wonderful.
Yes, awesome. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Look forward to seeing you. Bye.
Bye.